Back to Delft then, and the next morning we set out to explore the old city. The good thing about everything starting so late is that you can pretend you rose at the crack of dawn, especially if, like us, you arrive out of season. The city goes back to the 11th century, but much of what you see is more recent. On the 12th of October 1654, Cornelius Sortens, keeper of the weapons magazine, went to check the stores and caused an explosion. 30 tons of gunpowder exploded, destroying a third of the city, killing many people, hundreds according to historians, and wounding even more. The old church, on which construction began in the 13th century, survived the blast except for the windows, but the reason its tower is so crooked is that the ground here is simply too soft. Buried here is one of Delft's most famous residents, Jan Vermeer, the painter best known for his portrait of a young, unnamed girl with an earring. The tower of the church is known as Old John, or in Dutch, de Oude Jan, or if you prefer it in French, Le Vieux Jean. This would seem to be Delft's French Quarter, which extends around the corner to the Café du Centre. The new church isn't much newer, but it took 100 years to build. In 1584, William of Orange was murdered in Delft, and with the traditional family burial ground in enemy hands, he was buried here. It is now the traditional burial place of the royal family. The new church is at one end of the marketplace, and the day we were there just happened to be market day. I have to say that Dutch markets in general remind me more of the markets we used to have in Britain in the 1980s. Yes, you can get local produce here, but also quite a lot of rather cheap fashion items. At the other end is the City Hall, originally built in the 15th century. It had to be rebuilt in the 1600s after a fire. Delft has had its fair share of those too. Behind the City Hall is the Old Way House. Delft received its city charter in 1246 and with it the right to keep its own set of scales. Medieval cities like this are picturesque unless you have to deliver goods into the centre or find you can't make a video without some modern intrusion or other, but otherwise Delft is attractive enough to be the Netherlands' second most popular tourist destination after Amsterdam. At its height, Delft was the third largest city in the Netherlands and became the cultural and scientific centre of the country. It's most famous for its porcelain. In the 17th century, Dutch manufacturers tried to emulate the exquisite designs on Chinese porcelain from Nanjing. Delft artists were the most successful. It didn't last long though. From 1672, the country's economy went downhill, Delft lost business to Rotterdam and The Hague, and Delftware couldn't compete with mass-produced products from England. Today, modern Delft is doing a bit better, but its population has stopped growing at a little under 100,000, having tripled during the 20th century. But it was time for us to take to the open road and head south. A small navigational error took us unwittingly towards Rotterdam, a city we weren't planning to visit, but we did get a glimpse of the Port of Rotterdam, one of the biggest and busiest ports in the world. In fact, between 1962 and 1986 it was the biggest. It stretches from the North Sea to Rotterdam itself, a distance of 40 kilometres or 25 miles, covering 105 square kilometres or 40 square miles. But we soon got back onto the right track and headed down towards the seriously watery part of the country. One thing you have to get used to here is the feeling of driving across causeways. But at least the weather was okay. The North Sea can get pretty stormy. Even so, all that salt in the air is not good for your car. we made our way to Ouddorp, more or less randomly, where we paid a visit to the beach. And one of the first things you notice about the coast in this country is that you can't always see the sea because there's usually a massive dike in the way, and by massive I mean massive. Behind it, you're confronted with some useful instructions on how to use the beach. And if you get past that, you can go ahead and try to find an activity that isn't forbidden. Throwing frisbees is one, a skill which requires practice. The Netherlands' relationship with the sea is ambivalent, to say the least. Humans have for centuries reclaimed land from the sea, and the sea has attempted to reclaim it back in a series of devastating floods, often killing thousands of people. The most recent was in 1953, which claimed over 1,800 lives in the Netherlands, as well as hundreds more in Belgium and England. The beach may be almost empty in mid-October, but there's no escaping the fact that you are in one of the world's most densely populated areas. Time once again to get back to the car and make our way out of South Holland and onto the province of Zeeland to find a place to stay before everything closed, which in the Netherlands is 6 o'clock.